On my wedding day, my nude photos were suddenly displayed on the big screen. My fiancé, William Hunter, was both ashamed and angry, and turned around to marry the daughter of my mother's first love, after my reputation was ruined by the broken engagement. My neighbor, James Cooper, took the initiative to propose to me. My mother immediately agreed to the marriage, allowing me to marry smoothly. 2 years later, William Hunter and his wife became the youngest billionaires in the area, but I became a haggard housewife taking care of my husband and children. On my mother's birthday, everyone gathered at her house for dinner, and I accidentally overheard a conversation between my mother and James Cooper near the kitchen door. "Mom, you're so clever to come up with the idea of showing nude photos at the wedding," making Hunter angry enough to break off the engagement. That way, Emma Taylor could marry the person she loves. I just wonder if Ivy Green would forgive you if she knew you meticulously planned for her to marry me, all for Emma Taylor's sake. I had just finished washing the vegetables and was walking back when I heard voices coming from the yard. My mother was sitting in a wicker chair watching TV, saying casually, "That haggard housewife. It's her blessing to be able to contribute to Ivy Green's happiness. Besides, I raised her. How dare she hold a grudge against me? It's just that I feel sorry for you. Ivy Green is so outstanding. But you have to wrong yourself by marrying Emma Taylor." James Cooper sighed. "I'm willing. Ivy Green is a phoenix in the sky. How can I let her suffer even a little bit, seeing how well she's doing now, marrying into a wealthy family and becoming a rich lady? I think it's all worth it," my mother said smugly. James Cooper nodded with a smile. My heart was torn apart, and I almost couldn't stand. So this is the truth. My mother transferred all her regrets about her first love to his daughter, and my husband only saw me as a substitute. But I treated them as my closest people. I'm such an idiot. At this moment, my son, who was lying on the floor, suddenly woke up and started crying. I thought my mother would take care of him, but she just left him on the cold floor. "Emma Green, are you done yet? Remember to prepare abalone for Ivy Taylor. It's her favorite. And her favorite French red wine." My mom and James Cooper were only concerned with asking questions, but no one came to help me. I quickly picked up my son and made him some formula. In the living room, they were fussing over Ivy Taylor, afraid that the pregnant woman might be wronged. I touched my 5-month-old belly and had to take care of my 1-year-old son while preparing a table full of dishes. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. My mother's bias was far beyond my imagination. James Cooper glanced at me. My mom immediately chimed in. "Ha, easy to say. But no one's helping." My son started crying for a hug again. "Go find your dad. Mommy has to cook." My son kept wriggling in the stroller, but James Cooper refused to hold him. Every time I asked James Cooper to take care of the child, he always made excuses, saying he didn't know how to take care of small children. My mom impatiently pursed her lips. "Is that so? He's busy?" I watched James Cooper peeling an apple for Ivy Taylor, and he was even teasing her belly, saying jokes. "He's pretty busy licking his white moonlight." If he could have this much patience with his own son, my son wouldn't be at the point where he can't even say dad. I had no choice but to push the stroller into the kitchen, preparing ingredients while taking care of my son. After getting pregnant with my second child, my physical strength became increasingly weak, and backaches were a common occurrence. At this moment, my heart was like a knife. There wasn't a single person in this family who was genuinely good to me. While chopping vegetables, I silently wiped away tears. I'm only 26 years old. Am I going to live the rest of my life so miserably? I'm not willing to. My son suddenly started crying in the stroller. I quickly stopped what I was doing and picked him up, gently patting him. A 1-year-old child is most sensitive. I have to watch him every step of the way. My son gradually calmed down in my arms. I remembered when I was a child. Only my dad would patiently coax me. My mom was always running out, spending time with her old flame and his daughter, Ivy Taylor. Ivy Taylor is so elegant, unlike you. You're not likable at all. How could I be unlikable? It's because no one has ever genuinely loved me. My mom doted on Ivy Taylor, but always treated me coldly. She always said Ivy Taylor was more like her, more refined. While I was just a burden, my grades were better than Ivy Taylor's, but I received no praise. Girls just end up getting married anyway. What's the point of studying so hard? Later, I fell in love and brought William Hunter home. My mom immediately said I wasn't good enough for him and told me to break up with him. I knew she wanted to introduce William Hunter to Ivy Taylor, but this time I didn't listen to her. I insisted on marrying William Hunter, but on the wedding day, my mom got her wish. She meticulously planned to play my nude photos at the wedding. And William Hunter stormed off. I desperately tried to get him back, but to no avail in the end. Ivy Taylor offered to marry William Hunter, unexpectedly. This farce was orchestrated by my mom. My mom's phone was charging when a text message popped up. It was from my mom's first love, Ivy Taylor's father. My eyes welled up. This was the reason my mom favored Ivy Taylor so much. Every time I saw Ivy Taylor, my mom would only tell me to behave myself and not embarrass her. My mom would always praise Ivy Taylor in front of me. When I got into a prestigious university, she said it was just luck. When I found a job, she said I was punching above my weight. When I got married, she gave Ivy Taylor a dowry of $100,000, but didn't even attend my wedding. Recalling the past, I felt more and more sad, and tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I was watching my son in the kitchen and forgot to continue cooking for a moment. My mom came over and started scolding. "Aren't you going to hurry up? What time is it? Are you trying to starve Ivy Taylor?" I gently soothed my son. "Keep your voice down. The baby just calmed down. What a drama queen. He's a boy. Why is he so delicate?" My mom raised her voice. My son was startled and started crying again. I finally couldn't take it anymore. My mom's face turned green with anger. I continued to soothe my crying son. My mom wanted to hold him, but he clung tightly to my neck. Yeah, my mom never takes it seriously, often just leaves him on the floor, not caring if he falls or gets hurt. James Cooper strode into the house. "Give me the baby. You go prepare dinner. Ivy Taylor says she's starving." My mom's heart ached as soon as she heard that. Ivy Taylor is pregnant. She can't be hungry. I'll go get her some fancy snacks right away. I had no choice but to hand the baby to James Cooper, even though my son was struggling. As soon as I stepped into the kitchen, the smell of cooking oil made me nauseous. This pregnancy wasn't stable to begin with, and the doctor specifically told me to rest to prevent a miscarriage, but clearly, I wouldn't be able to rest today. My mom saw me leaning against the wall, retching, and she was furious. "Here you go again, faking it. Deliberately dragging your feet, aren't you? You barely come home, and you make such a fuss about cooking." I covered my mouth and said with difficulty, "Ivy Taylor can enjoy a life of ease because she's pregnant, but I have to serve people when I'm pregnant." My mom got even angrier when she heard that. "How dare you compare yourself to Ivy Taylor? She's a golden girl. What are you? You're just a jinx. You almost ruined Master Hunter's reputation, and now you dare to act up here." I couldn't help but retort, "You're so protective of her. Didn't you spread those rumors in the first place, causing William Hunter and I to break up?" My mom raised her hand and slapped me, causing me to stagger and fall to the ground. "You've gone too far. How dare you talk back to your elders? I'm going to teach you a lesson today, you unfilial daughter." James Cooper and Ivy Taylor rushed over when they heard the noise. "Auntie, don't be angry. Let me help with the cooking." My mom and James Cooper quickly stopped her. "Your health is precious. Don't tire yourself out. Yes, the kitchen is stuffy and hot. It's bad for the baby, so." They knew pregnant women shouldn't be in the kitchen. They just looked down on me. Ivy Taylor giggled sweetly. "Then I'll have to trouble my sister." My mom glared at me fiercely. "Hurry up and get to work. With your kind of life, you're destined to be a workhorse forever." They went back to the living room, chatting and laughing. Leaving me standing there, I stood up, supporting my back, and felt a sharp pain in my lower abdomen. Could something be wrong? Looking at James Cooper in the living room, his eyes were only on Ivy Taylor's beautiful figure. The two of them were being intimate, oblivious to everyone else. Fine, this home that isn't a home, this unfaithful man. I don't want any of it. Tonight's dinner is our final farewell. I had just finished preparing the meal and was about to wash my hands when Ivy Taylor suddenly blocked my way. A cold smirk on her face. Her eyes were filled with contempt and triumph, as if she were looking at an insignificant ant. "Emma Green, you know what? I've always been grateful to you," Ivy Taylor said softly, but with a chilling undertone. "If you hadn't been so stupid back then, I wouldn't have had the chance to marry William." I stared at her coldly, not responding. Her every word was like a knife stabbing into my heart, but I was already numb. "You think your mom really loves you?" Ivy Taylor chuckled. "She just used you as a tool. Only when you married James Cooper could she take care of me with a clear conscience. After all, she owes my dad, and she'll never be able to repay it in this lifetime." I clenched my fists, my nails digging deep into my palms. "So, My mom's indifference and favoritism towards me were because of her guilt towards her first love, and I had become her sacrifice for atonement. You know what? Ivy Taylor leaned closer, lowering her voice. Those nude photos at the wedding were actually taken by someone I hired. Your mom just helped me execute the plan. For me, she could even sacrifice her own daughter. I trembled all over, barely able to stand. So all of this was Ivy Taylor's conspiracy, and my mom had willingly cooperated with her, ruining my life. Emma Green. You'll never be better than me, Ivy Taylor said with a smug smile. You're just a pathetic worm, destined to live in my shadow forever. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. Looking at Ivy Taylor's smug face, I suddenly smiled. Ivy Taylor, you think you've won, I said softly. You think you've really found happiness just because you married William Hunter? Ivy Taylor's smile froze, and she looked at me warily. What do you mean? I didn't answer, but turned and walked towards the living room. James Cooper and my mom were sitting on the sofa, talking in hushed tones. When they saw me come in, they immediately stopped talking, their faces showing unnatural expressions. Mom, James, I have something to say, I said calmly. My mom frowned. What are you trying to stir up now? Go wash the dishes and stop being an eyesore here, I sneered. Mom, do you really think it'll let you control me forever? My mom was stunned, clearly not expecting me to talk to her like that. James Cooper also stood up, frowning at me. Emma Green, don't make a scene. It's your mom's birthday today. Let's all be happy. Happy? I scoffed. You're happy, but what about me? You've ruined my life, and yet you're here celebrating. My mom's face turned green with anger. You ungrateful wretch. I raised you, and this is how you repay me. Raised me? I looked at her mockingly. You raised me, but only to atone for your sins. You dotted on Ivy Taylor, but treated me with indifference, all because you owed her father, didn't you? My mom's face instantly turned pale. She opened her mouth, but couldn't say a word. Seeing this, James Cooper quickly stepped forward and pulled me back. Emma Green, don't say any more. It's your mom's birthday today. Don't make everyone unhappy. I shook off his hand and looked at him coldly. James Cooper, do you think I don't know? You married me for Ivy Taylor. You've always loved her. I'm just a substitute. James Cooper's face also turned ugly, and he said in a low voice, Emma Green, don't talk nonsense. I sneered. Then what did you mean by what you said in the yard earlier? James Cooper and my mom exchanged glances, clearly not expecting me to have overheard their conversation. Emma Green, let me explain. James Cooper tried to appease me. No need to explain, I interrupted him. From today on, I have nothing to do with you anymore. With that, I turned and walked towards the door. My mom finally reacted and screamed, Emma Green, you dare to leave. If you leave, don't ever come back. I stopped and looked back at her. Mom, this is the last time I'll call you Mom. From now on, I have nothing to do with you or this family. I walked out of the house, and tears finally streamed down my face. But I knew this was the beginning of my new life. A few months later, I stood in front of a high-end restaurant, took a deep breath, and pushed open the door inside the restaurant. William Hunter was sitting by the window. When he saw me come in, he immediately stood up. Emma Green, you're here. His voice had a hint of nervousness and anticipation. I nodded and walked to the seat opposite him. What do you want to see me about? I asked calmly. William Hunter took a deep breath and said softly, Emma Green, I know I wronged you back then, but I realize now that Ivy Taylor isn't who I thought she was. She's been using me all along. I scoffed. So, you regret it now? William Hunter lowered his head, a hint of pain in his voice. Emma Green, I know I made a mistake back then, but I hope you can give me a chance to make it up to you. I looked at him, but my heart didn't waver. The pain of the past had taught me to be strong, and I was no longer the Emma Green who could be manipulated. William Hunter, we're done, I said calmly. I came here today just to tell you one thing. William Hunter looked up, looking at me with confusion. I'm pregnant, I said softly, but it's not your child. William Hunter's face turned pale instantly. He opened his mouth, but couldn't say a word. I stood up and looked at him coldly. William Hunter, from now on, we are even. With that, I turned and left the restaurant. The moment I walked out the door, I felt lighter than ever before. Years later, I stood in the office of a large corporation. Looking at the city night view outside the window, my career was booming, and life was getting better and better. Emma, here are today's files. The secretary walked in and respectfully placed the files on my desk. I nodded and picked up the files, carefully reading through them. Just then, my phone suddenly rang. I picked it up and saw it was an unfamiliar number. Hello, who is this? I answered the phone. Emma Green, it's me, James Cooper. James Cooper's deep voice came from the other end of the phone. I frowned. What do you want? Emma Green, I know I wronged you back then, but I realize now that Ivy Taylor isn't who I thought she was. She's been using me all along. I scoffed. So, you regret it now? James Cooper lowered his head, a hint of pain in his voice. Emma Green, I know I made a mistake back then, but I hope you can give me a chance to make it up to you. I said coldly. James Cooper, we're done. From now on, we are even. With that, I hung up the phone, looking at the night view outside the window. I felt lighter than ever before. I had finally shaken off the shadows of the past and started a new life, and those who had hurt me in the past ultimately paid the price for their actions. The end.